Hello everyone, welcome to Noir Feed, where we take a look into terrifying crimes, unexplained disappearances, and odd occurrences. Fair warning, most of these cases are disturbing, so to the faint of heart, beware. Now then, shall we? William Bonin was born January 8, 1947. He grew up the second of three boys to his family. Bonin grew up in a tumultuous home. His parents were both alcoholics, and his father was physically abusive to Bonin's mother, his two brothers, as well as Bonin. The abuse and neglect were so bad, neighbors took notice and would often feed and clothe the boys. They were also left in the care of their grandfather, who was a convicted child molester and would turn his attention to all three of his grandsons. The abuse these children suffered was so significant that in 1953, when he was only 6 years old, Bonin's mother placed her children in an orphanage to protect them from their father's violence as well as their grandfather's. However, the orphanage wasn't a safe place for the boys either. The children would receive beatings for minor offenses, and Bonin would reveal later in life that he had endured sexual abuse from older males. Bonin lived at the orphanage until he was 9 years old, when he returned to his family. When Bonin was 10, he was sent to juvenile detention for stealing license plates, where he, once again, suffered physical and sexual abuse, even at the hands of his counselor. In 1961, Bonin's family relocated to California to avoid foreclosure of their home. Not long after the family settled in, Bonin's father passed away from cirrhosis of the liver. In his teenage years, Bonin's predatory behavior started developing. He would often sexually abuse his younger brother and would lure children into his home with the promise of alcohol, only to abuse these children as well. In 1965, after graduating high school, Bonin became engaged at the request of his mother, as she hoped it would stop her son's evident homosexuality. It was also during this time that he would join the Air Force, where he would fight in Vietnam as an aerial gunner. Because war had desensitized Bonin to death and killing, he claims these experiences had led him to believe that human life was overvalued. During his time in Vietnam, Bonin admitted that he sexually assaulted two fellow officers at gunpoint. This assault occurred during the historic Tet Offensive. After 3 years of service, Bonin received an honorable discharge and returned home to his mother and fiancé. Bonin did marry, however the marriage was short-lived and the couple soon divorced. On November 17, 1968, when he was 21, Bonin committed sexual assault on a boy. Over the next 4 months, he would do the same to 3 other boys, ages ranging from 12 years old to 18 years old. He would restrain the boys by tying them up and would also beat them as well. In 1969, Bonin was arrested when he failed to restrain a 16-year-old boy who had gotten into Bonin's vehicle when he had attempted to assault him. Bonin was charged for the kidnapping and sexual assault of the aforementioned victims. He pled guilty to molestation and was sentenced to Atascadero State Hospital in an attempt for rehabilitation. After multiple psychiatric examinations, his doctors found him to have a slightly elevated IQ and also showed signs of manic depression. After 2 years of treatment, Bonin was sent to prison as the doctors found him unsuitable for further treatment. This was due to Bonin repeatedly sexually engaging other male inmates. On June 11, 1974, Bonin was released from prison. Doctors at the time concluded that Bonin was no longer a danger to the health and safety of others. Only 2 months after his release, Bonin picked up a 14-year-old boy who he agreed to drive home to his parents. Bonin soon produced a gun and would proceed to beat and rape the boy. Bonin attempted to then strangle the 14-year-old, but stopped when he started screaming. Bonin then drove the boy to his home, leaving him with the message that "we will meet again." The boy immediately told his mother of the encounter, and she called the police. Bonin pled guilty to the charges, as well as charges of attempted kidnapping of a 15-year-old boy, only 2 days after the assault. On December 31st of 1975, Bonin was sentenced to serve 1 to 15 years in prison. He was released from prison October 11, 1978, with 18 months supervised probation. On May 28, 1979, a 13-year-old boy named Thomas Glenn Lundgren left his home to hitchhike to another location. His body would later be discovered that same afternoon. Lundgren had suffered a violent death, having been beaten, stabbed, and strangled. The gruesome discovery was found on the side of the road, giving name to the Freeway Killer. 2 months later, Bonin and one of his accomplices, Vernon Butts, abducted 17-year-old Mark Shelton as he was walking to a movie theater. Bonin violated Shelton with pool cues and other foreign objects, which sent the boy into fatal shock. They left his body in San Bernardino County. The list of victims brutalized by Bonin is long, and these boys suffered horribly as they were assaulted and beaten to death. The killings would continue until the murders would receive attention from the gay community as well as media coverage. Gay rights activists offered a $50,000 reward for any information regarding the Freeway Killer. By this time, investigators assigned to the murders determined they were linked and started sharing information with other precincts. A lead would turn up when a 17-year-old named William Pugh would be arrested for auto theft. Pugh, while in juvenile detention, overheard descriptions of the murders on the radio and confessed to his counselor that he had actually accompanied the murder in one of his abductions that ended with the murder of a 15-year-old runaway named Harry Turner. This information led to investigators starting to surveil Bonin on June 2nd of 1980. This same day, Bonin, along with another accomplice, James Monroe, met 18-year-old Stephen J. Wells at a bus stop. They persuaded Wells to go to Bonin's apartment with the promise of $200 if he would engage in intercourse with them. Once at the apartment, Bonin bound, beat, and raped Wells before strangling him to death with his own t-shirt. Bonin and Monroe then placed Wells' body in a box to transfer it to a dump site in Bonin's van. His body was found 5 hours later behind a gas station. After 9 days of surveillance, Bonin lured a 17-year-old named Harold Eugene Tate into his van. Police followed the van to a desolate parking lot. When officers approached the vehicle, they heard muffled screams in the back. The officers forced the vehicle open and found Bonin sexually assaulting the boy, who had been handcuffed. Bonin was immediately arrested and charged with the rape of a minor and held on $250,000 bond. While searching the van, investigators found a nylon cord, a tire iron, many knives, as well as bloodstains, which were also found in Bonin's home. Bonin was convicted January 6, 1982, of 10 murders in Los Angeles County. He would later receive 4 more convictions of murder in Orange County, each count carrying the death sentence. Bonin remained incarcerated for 14 years in San Quentin State Prison. He was sentenced to die in the gas chamber. However, the method was deemed cruel and unusual and was replaced with lethal injection. Bonin was executed on February 23, 1996. He was the first person to be executed by lethal injection in the state of California, 14 years after his first conviction. Investigators were able to confirm that 21 boys and young men had been raped, tortured, and murdered by the hands of Bonin, and he is also suspected of 15 more murders. Alright everybody, that will do it for this Noir feed. I appreciate you all being here. Please like and subscribe on your way out, and I will see you next time.